Right. So we've gone back to Orkney, and the reason why we've gone back to Orkney is that Bill has been to Orkney with me in some very tight places on Orkney. Right? We visited all the bits that we're going to look at in Orkney. Well, in a way, actually. So what we've got on Orkney are two ship burials, or boat burials, Viking boat burials. Now, the one that is the famous boat burial is on the island of Sande. Now, the island of Sande is, I do believe, is that little one on the right there. Probably got it wrong. And then the other island that we're going to look at is the island of Rousey, where we're just going to mention the West Ness ship burial or boat burial. Got to keep correcting myself. So when me and Bill went to look at the island of Sande, we visited close to the spot that the Viking boat burial of Sande was actually originally discovered not so many years ago by a woman that Bill got a bit drunk with in her own house on the island of Rousey, called Julie Gibson. So I'm building up this picture, right?
Lovely Julie.
I'm building up this wonderful picture. Now, I just wanted to, I wanted to do more. I'm going to look at the Mice Howe site. So to give a little bit of an overview, for Ellen, and I'm going to show you a load of images, then we'll have a little bit more of a discussion when Ellen's gone. Right, so that's the island of the islands of Orkney, and so we're going to look at this, which Bill has actually seen in the Kirkwall Museum, and the copy on the island of Sande. So Bill's seen this. It's not much bigger than what you're seeing on your screen, is it, Bill? It's not a huge thing.
No.
It's not, and this is known as the scar plaque associated with the Sande boat burial. So we're going to look at this, and this is that legendary boat burial. Now there's 3 individuals associated with it, and there is the little plaque at the end of the boat. Now it's easy to go into the word ship and call them ship burials, and then you start to think about people chucking torches into a ship and it going up in flames. It's easy to think like that. But these are buried. The boats, the timber, they're buried, and all the bits and pieces are put in there. A bit like the Sutton Hoo ship burial, again, ship, not boat, where that wasn't burned. Now these weren't burned either. Now, from an archaeological context, and I'm just going to chuck it out there, some of the best Viking stuff comes from Orkney. So we'll look at this in a few moments. That's the type of vessel that we're talking about, a Viking Fairing, which is a little fishing boat. And it was found on this beach, which again, we'll have a look at. So these types of burials, this is one found elsewhere in Scotland. So basically what you've got usually a boat in there, and it's sort of lined out with stones beforehand, that type of thing. And we're going to look at this one briefly, the West Ness burial, and that's the reconstruction, right? So it's obviously a gentleman and another find on Rousey, but we don't actually look much at this one at all. And one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to go all the way down to that pink little blob there. I want us to look at that pink little blob. The reason why I want to look at that pink little blob is that it's an archaeological site that I actually was involved in the excavations at the end, associated with the site known as the Atlantic Trading Estate. Now that's what we're gonna look at today, and I'll mention a couple of other names about place names and so on within the local area. So that's something else. And we've got a few other little maps and trade routes, Viking history, and we got that sort of really complicated map there. And then one exciting thing that we're going to do is we're going to move on a little bit further, and we're going to go inside here. Now, Pat has been inside here with me, and Bill has been inside here with me. And what we're going to say, we're going to say goodbye to Ellen for now. Ellen, this is being recorded. So you've had a nice little bit of an overview. And Ellen, it's been an absolute delight to see you. And if your teeth finish early, come back on.
Our fated finishes. All right. See you tomorrow anyway. All the best to everybody else. Bye.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you. Thank you. Now we can talk about Ellen. What was this staff meeting about? Right, okay. So that's basically an overview of what we're doing today. And it was unfortunate that we started a little bit later. So I think one of the things that I mentioned last week in regards to the Vikings on Orkney is very much that you always associate Orkney with Vikings, not so much Picts. You always associate Orkney with Vikings because Kirkwall Cathedral, you've got Magnus, St. Magnus, and all these wonderful things, and you just think about Lindisfarne. We had a reconstructed image a bit further on about that. Lindisfarne. We think about the Norsemen, the attack of the Northmen coming from Orkney. Those are the ones who attacked it, probably, if those events were true and all the rest of it. In 793. That's when the raid was, January 793. So we go back to Orkney. We think about Orkney, and before Ellen went, I quickly dissolved from the burial chamber at Maes Howe, and I should have said, within the burial chamber at Maes Howe, there's two sets of carvings. One set of carving is runic, with some very naughty things written there, Pam. So you need to put your fingers in your ears. I wonder if my text actually describes what that is. Bill knows what I'm talking about.
I know.
Pat
yeah,
a bit more extreme than that. And Pat didn't hear that bit. Anyway, and there's some Neolithic carvings in there as well, which there was the discussion whether the Neolithic stuff was actually some kind of writing that the runic is writing about 1,000 years ago. And when I just had a sort of little bit of a thought in my head, 1,000 years ago is not a real long time when you think of, say, the Neolithic period, or when you think about the building of the Great Pyramids and so on. It's sort of in the historical memory, it's in the historical record that we've got these runes, these runic carvings, and there's quite a lot of them, and we will look at that. So what I'd like to do now is, without blowing you away like a tidal wave with loads of images, let's have this little plaque in front of us. This lovely little plaque in front of us. Now, I think Pat's actually seen this as well. I get confused because Pat only went to Orkney with us once, wasn't it, Pat?
Yeah, first time.
Bill's been with me 3 times. Or was it 4? I can't remember. What one was a nightmare anyway. I gotta be honest with you, right? I'm never gonna go to an island with somebody that drinks, and it wasn't you, Bill. You don't drink.
Of course not.
Yeah. The Scar Viking boat burial. Now, one of Orkney's most important archaeological finds of, well, actually the last few years, came to light on the island of Sande after a fearsome storm. And Pete's just joined us as well. So that's we'll just say to Pete, where have you been? So Scar Viking boat burial. Now, to build up the scene, Pam, when we went to the island of Sande, we visited an eroded face where there was lots of Neolithic pottery and bone and Mesolithic stuff eroding out the side of this cliff side. It was quite weird, actually, and there was a spinal bone of a child in there and all these wonderful things. It was It was quite odd, actually seeing archaeology and touching it, and me saying to everybody, leave it there, because I know that there's the Sande Archaeological Society actually records all that stuff, so that was fine. And then we went further on down the coast, and we went to the place that was discovered in 1985. We just looked over it. We didn't actually get down on the beach. And it's the Sande shore at Skar on the north sort of western side of the island of Sande. And the other weird thing about the island of Sande, it used to have its own railway, didn't it, Bill?
Oh, yes, we went on the old track, didn't we? I followed the line of the old track. Yes, we did.
Yeah, it's the only railway on Orkney, right? So anyway, 1985, they made this find in Sande, and that wonderful plaque was not initially found. Okay, so a guy was wandering along called John Dearness, found a number of bones jutting out from an exposed sandbank. The ferocity of a storm a few days previous, this is 1985, has stripped away the side of the bank, revealing the bones. Lying nearby was a small round lead object, about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Thinking he had stumbled across the grave of a sailor who had perished at sea, Mr. Dearness, this local chappie, picked up the lead object and carried it home. After showing it to a friend, they decided it was simply part of a car battery, so it was placed in a kitchen drawer, shut away and forgotten about. So I'm just going to stop there, and I'm reading this and I'm thinking, what about the bones? What did he do with the bones? I want to know. That's not in the story. Well, it is in the story, but we're going to wait a moment. This little lead object proved to be the key to a 1,100-year-old mystery. Now, Bill is going to get very excited with a name that I'm just about to mention. Significant find. In 1991, after lying hidden for 6 years, the object was shown to visiting archaeologist, personal friend of Bill, Julie Gibson. Yep, Julie Gibson, who recognized it as a significant archaeological find. Now, Julie Gibson is the island county archaeologist. Well, she was a couple of years ago anyway. So Julie Gibson, this is 1991. So you can imagine she's been looking at this stuff now for 30 years now, at least. So this is 1991. And the object was taken back to Cornwall, where it was identified as a lead weight. It's a lead weight, once used by North traders to weigh gold and silver on a scale balance. So basically it's known as a lead bullion weight. So bullion, gold, silver, lead, bullion, weight. That's what had been found. Now, what I'm going to say is go out and sort of look at a few more images yourself on this. Excited by the find, Julie Gibson invited them all over for a drink of whiskey. No, that was us. Julie Gibson returned to Sande with Dr. Raymond Lamb, where they uncovered a few rusty pieces of iron rivet at the site, riveting for the timbers. The true significance of Mr. Dearness's chance discovery was rapidly becoming clear. So when you think about this is 1985, erosions occurred, some of the bones are washed away, some other damage has occurred. It's a shame it wasn't excavated there and then. But I don't think Julie Gibson would have been on the island then, to be honest, because this idea of having county archaeologists for Orkney and Shetland, it was a developing thing back then, so it may have been missed anyway. So anyway, 1991, it looked as though they had found a Viking boat burial, and they truly had. Now, this instigated a frantic race against time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the image. Let's sort of change the image a little bit. The frantic race against time. So what we're looking at, there's a box there. There's 1, 2, 3 burials, shield, sword. There's our little sort of Skar plaque over there, Skar Sande Beach. And this is the burial. So there's 3 individuals, which is really, really significant. So now there was a frantic race against time. You can't make this up. With Orkney's notorious autumn storms imminent, known as the Gore Valley, which is Gorevellye. That's the wrong pronunciation. The Gore Valley, which is basically like the Seven Bore, where, you know, there's 7 Bore. There's a race of water up the coastline. You know, high water every year apparently. Anyway, this was imminent, and an urgent rescue mission had to be mounted before the storms that had revealed the site returned again and finally destroyed it. Now, historic Scotland acted quickly. It's now known as Scottish heritage. A team of archaeologists was sent north to investigate and record the discovery before the rest of the archaeological evidence was washed away forever. You can imagine, Bill, they all stayed at Julie Gibson's house and had to ferry over to Sande every day. I don't know what they did. They probably stayed on the island of Sande. Their efforts were soon rewarded when the excavation uncovered a pagan Norse boat burial. A pagan Norse boat burial. Now, as with the Sutton Hoo ship burial, which you'll all hear about with the new film coming out, which is a big thing, right? With that in the sand, all the wood had rotted away. So they had these sort of these iron rivets, these iron nails that were used to keep all the planking together, right? So this is what they were finding here, and also the wood had rotted away at this site. So all the wood had rotted away. The marks left in the sand by over 300 rusted iron rivets marked out the shape of the vessel that had carried its occupants to the Viking otherworld. Now, you think about this. This is a relatively small burial compared to the likes of Sutton Hoo. Right, and the reason why I keep mentioning Sutton Hoo, and you're thinking is that's Anglo-Saxon. I was thinking, well, the burial is actually a Swedish gentleman from about 640, and he wasn't Anglo-Saxon, but it's always called the Anglo-Saxon ship burial when we look at Sutton Hoo. Anyway, back to this. So the length of this is only 6.5 meters, but it's a nice length. Plank built, and this is an oared rowing boat of a type known as a fairing, which we've seen an image of. But by the time of the excavation, one side had already been washed away by the fierce tides. Now you're thinking, well, but if Mr. Dearness had acted earlier, you know, but we don't know that, do we? We really don't know that. We don't know. But anyway, the main thing is lots of wonderful treasures were there, you know, treasures like the Scar plaque, the Scar dragon plaque. The boat had been buried in a stone-lined pit, like the image that we've seen, which we'll have a look at in a moment. In a stone-lined pit. It's sort of saying a stone-lined pit. The excavations revealed had been dug too big. Because of this, the vessel had been packed securely into position with stones. A stone wall had been built across the interior of the boat that you're seeing, forming a chamber of sorts. And in this was the remains of 3 people, a man at the top, a woman, and a child. Alongside the human remains was a treasure trove. Now, to be honest with you, anything of this period, if it's buried together, whether it's gold, whether it's a plaque, whether it's iron, that's a treasure trove. Yes, forming a chamber of sorts, if you think about it. And in this were the remains of 3 people. Alongside the human remains was a treasure trove of grave goods. And I was just making sure. Are you there with us, Pete?
Yes.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Don't make yourself too known, Pete. Just it's fine. It's okay. You've laboured it now. Let's leave it.
Well, you talked about the railway line. Who had to turn the minibus around in that little narrow road?
It wasn't Bill. Let's move on.
It was narrow, Pete, wasn't it?
It was. We had to move a bloody table, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, you had to move the table.
Yeah. True.
Oh, it's the only place in the world that you can get a table in the middle of the road and it's normal. Anyway, back to Sande, back to the railway on Sande, moving away from the railway on Sande and back to the beach at Scar Beach. Objects that were included to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Now, these objects were unparalleled in Britain, both in quality and state of preservation. So you would think that the Scar dragon plaque had sort of decayed. You know, it's basically bone, but it's still there. So again, let's sort of have a little look at this image. And so that's the fair in the Viking Fairing, and that's basically the landscape that we're talking about. It's almost sort of it'd be a very beautiful beach actually, and that's that. Now, as I said, I think Pete may have just missed this by a minute or so. I said that the original is in the Cornwall Museum, and there's a copy on the island of Sande, and I think you two have seen both of them. And Pat would have seen the one in the island museum at Cornwall. Anyway, so obviously it's a really nice dragon plaque. It's very unique. It's very interesting. This is a decorated whalebone plaque, now known as the Scar plaque. And they found a gilded brooch. Now, I did have an image of the gilded brooch earlier on. I was looking at it and I went on to something else and I friggin' lost the bloody thing. Beside the man was an iron sword, a quiver containing 8 arrows, a bone comb, and a set of 22 gaming pieces. Alongside the woman was a comb, a sickle, a weaving sword, shears, and 2 spindle wheels. On the basis of the artifacts and later radiocarbon dating, the grave was dated to between the year 875 and 950 years AD. And you could probably presume that these individuals were actually pagan rather than Christian. If they're more towards the 875 date, they're going to be more like going to be pagan. So if they're the other way, they're more like going to be Christian. And Bill's going to answer this question quite briefly. Would those runic carvings at Mice How be done by a Christian or a pagan? Would a Christian use that language, Bill?
No.
Exactly. Christians don't use that type of language. Anyway, so we sort of and what I've got in front of me, is some more little bit of information. So it was with this. The excavation taking place in very wintry conditions in November and December 1991, sort of within days of them really working out what's going on, and just a few other little bits of information. Now, this is rather interesting. Sand within the boat lining was found not to match from Orkney or Shetland nor the Scottish mainland. So this is rather interesting. They went to the detail of excavating it, keeping some of the sand from the keel, and they worked out that this boat was not made in Scotland, was probably launched in Norway. Now, it's rather interesting. Would this type of boat have made it across that stretch of water? But the archaeological evidence tells us that this boat was made in Norway and indicated by the sand. We can't get any information from the wood because the wood's gone. Now, we mentioned about, if we go back again, sort of stop, let's not be too awkward here. If we start looking again at this, it's describing this as a chamber of sorts, a sort of chamber within a boat. This is what my notes are describing it as, and it's saying the width is only 1.5 meters, so it's quite a thin vessel, 6.5 meters in length. We've mentioned the rivets, and the grave goods, the numerous grave goods, we do believe the man died when he was 30 years old. The child, we're not sure of the sex, maybe about 10, 11 years old. And the very interesting thing is that the woman there was 70 years old when she died. So in other words, we've got 3 families represented here. We're going to make an assumption. The daughter of the man who was the son of the woman. Now that's a really interesting assemblage of individuals, very interesting. There is evidence that the man had rowed a boat when he was younger because of his bone growth, and that the woman had habitually sat cross-legged and had possibly spun flax, or she may have been using a grinding stone. It's another interesting thing. So we know about the quiver, we know about the sword. The whalebone plaque is found at more or less at the feet of the lady. It's found at the feet of the lady. So the whalebone plaque might be associated with her, and she had the gilded brooch found with her as well. So there's no evidence to how these individuals died. And occasionally the stone plaque does sort of make its rounds around different museums across Britain. It was actually at the Viking Centre for some time in 2010. But it's back in Orkney where it should be. There you go. Oh, that was actually pretty exhausting. That was. Do you know what? With my lungs as they are now, trying to put enthusiasm into anything. But I did actually have a sleep today for an hour and a half, and that seems to have helped. So I just what I'd like to know, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to look at these couple of images. I'd like to mention the West Ness one and leave that there. And then I want to look at an article of the week in regards to Orkney. So
didn't you find an infant skeleton in the cliff's edge there?
Yes, we did. We did. Now, just describing this again, we saw the railway. We went to the coast. We saw an infant skeleton. And I tell you what, Peter, I wish I had the technology that I've got now, because that would have made an absolutely brilliant film.
Yeah.
But times change. Yeah, we looked on the island of Sande, obviously the railway thingy, minibus, and then we looked at the coastline, and we saw this wonderful array of archaeology along the coast, you know, and I mentioned that before you joined us, Pete, and there was the remains of a child and bones of fish and pottery and all sorts of things. And then we went to the spot and we looked over where this beach was, and there was more stuff, if I remember, where we actually got out the minibus. There was more stuff that we were actually looking at in the cliff line, and Kathy was going, "Oh, look at this wonderful piece of pottery," and I'm thinking, fuck's sake, you're not supposed to be taking this stuff out, lovely. Anyway, typical child Kathy is. Oh, I can't say that because Bill's here, because he doesn't like being insulted. So anyway, well, and Bill, you look so much better without your glasses on. I got to be honest with you.
Okay,
I did go to a boffy with Kathy.
Eh?
That was on the
I
island
did
of.
go to a boffy with Kathy.
Yeah, I want you to stop now. Thank you. Stop. So we got this wonderful find, and we got the star. We got the plaque in the base there, the whale plaque there. You can see these bodies, and then when we go on, we move on again, and actually, what they're saying is that it was dug too big. They put stones there. They put the boat in there, and then what they then did, they put stones at this end as well. And everything sort of leveled out. Anyway, if we sort of move on a little bit more, we haven't got a massive amount of time tonight. This is the West Ness burial, right? This is the West Ness burial. This is massively intriguing, and to be honest with you, this deserves a little bit more information in the future. I'm not going to do any more about this, right? But this is very similar to the other burial, but there's a gentleman buried at this site. Now, then I go on to a little bit of an article, and again, you can see this one. This is a bit more clearly where they actually excavated it bigger in the ground, and then they lined it with stones, and then they put the fairing in there, and then they weighed it down, and they put the body in there, and the spear, and the sword, and the axe, and the brooch there. This guy's buried with a brooch. And what I then sort of did, and where's that little image? God, where is it? There. I sort of thought this is what we typically think of with Vikings, with their swords, with their pommels, and we think about their axes, and we think about the design. Lots of these date to about the 1000s, and it's sort of saying about finds in Ireland and so on. So these wonderful types of objects are these wonderful. You can maybe think about the hilt there being very similar maybe to the hilt that may have been on there. So you can clearly see that. This is West Ness. What I'm going to do now is actually move on without too much rushing, move on to another article that I got in front of me. So I'd like to do that. So if we share this, now this is rather interesting. Now, archaeologists find Viking drinking hall during Orkney dig. So this then ties us in with the two finds that we've been talking about. So there you go. So they've got all this wonderful set of archaeological remains. So that's modern building on top, and then you've got these other buildings below. This is a wonderful, really nice set of archaeology, and they're excavating there. And this site itself, archaeologists have found what could be a Viking drinking hall during an excavation on Orkney. And the site at Scale Farmhouse at West Ness, which is going to be associated with the body that we've just seen on the island of Rousey, which would have been, this site would be touched by Julie Gibson again, Bill, is believed to date back to the 900s and may have been used by the chieftain Sigurd. Stone walls, benches, pottery, and a fragment of a Norse bone comb were found during the excavation. And again, looking at that, you're talking about substantial archaeology underneath that building there, really substantial archaeology. And we sort of, you're thinking that people have lived at this site since the Viking period. And you can see the nice cobbles there, the nice sort of paving there, the nice walls, some kind of a post hole on that one. Really, really big building, actually. So is this associated with the chieftain Sigurd? And as they were excavating there, it is hoped the site could reveal much about diet, farming, and fishing from the North period all the way to the 1800s. So that building there, all that information is going to be, it's great to get let's put the words in there, 1,000 years of archaeology on a site, and they're able to look at the refuge and the bones and the pottery, and let's chuck the odd brooch in there as well. That's great. So Viking links, Orkney was once, as we've already said and we've explained, was once a seat of power in the Norse Empire, and its Viking heritage, such as place names and architecture, remains evident today. Genetic studies have found many from the archipelago are descended from those who settled in the islands in the later part of the 700s. West Ness is mentioned in the Orkney Saga, historical narrative of the archipelago, as the home of Earl Sigurd, a powerful chieftain from the 1100s. Now, it's saying back here is that the farmhouse, the Viking farmhouse, dates back to the 900s. So by the time you get to Sigurd in the 1100s, the Vikings have already been there for a couple of hundred years. The name Scale, which is a Norse word for hall, suggests the site could have been used for drinking and was a high status locality. The article goes on. So the whole, the present farm dating from the 1800s and was part of the Rousey clearances during I think it was the 1830s, 1840s or somewhere like that, wasn't it, Bill? So that building was abandoned around then. We can remember Julie telling us that when people were cleared off the land, they were forced to sort of go into the higher bit of the island and sort of try and get a little bit of a living out of the marginal land. And people today, and I think Bill and I remember, people today still don't like the family that undertook these clearances 150 years before, and they're still on the island. They've still got a hall there, and there's this resentment that their ancestors were chucked out their own land and so on. I remember that conversation. A team from the University of Highlands Archaeological Institute, residents and students, have been excavating the site for a number of years to find the building. So look at that wonderful little comb. So what we do find is this. We do find where, as on the Scar whalebone plaque, which we didn't actually spend too much time on, there's these little circles again. So if we just when we come off this, we'll quickly look back at that. So this is a nice little comb, a Norse bone comb. Dan Lee, co-excavator of the excavations. The exciting news this season is that we have now found the Hall of Scale, as the place name suggests. You never know, but perhaps Earl Sigurd himself sat on one of the stone benches inside the hall and drank a flagon of ale. And as I was saying earlier on, a millennia of middens, the crap, 1,000 years of rubbish can tell people's change of diets from 900 years or 800 years AD all the way into the period of the clearances. And it'd be interesting to see if they can get this, work out what type of food they were eating at the time of the clearances, whether it was of great protein and carbohydrate value as compared to the diet of the Vikings. It'd be interesting to sort of do that comparison. So substantial walls, it's saying there, you're looking at the image below, walls 5.5 meters apart there, with internal features such as stone benches. It is not fully uncovered, but appears that this hall is over 13 meters in length and includes the legendary soapstone from Shetland, pottery, spindle wool, fragments of a Norse bone comb, which we've already seen, and different phases of wall. But you can see that there's 2 phases of wall there. The more recent wall, which is there, when I say recent in the Viking sense, and you've got the earlier wall there, different phases. And if you move that there, these walls are over a meter in thickness, so they're quite chunky walls, very chunky walls. It's when it's saying stone benches, I'm going with these divisions of the stone benches, because this here is actually a wall rather than a stone bench. So this excavation being undertaken by another lady that I think you mentioned, you met Ingrid, Bill, as well, and you did, Peter. Ingrid Mainland. Yes, I think you did. She was a very quick talking woman at the Institute. We have recovered a millennia of middens, which will allow us an unparalleled opportunity to look at changing dietary traditions, farming and fishing practices from the North period up until the 1800s. The excavation is part of the landscape of change. Archaeologies of the Rousey Clearance and West Ness Estate project. It aims to explore the farmstead at scale from the Norse period to its abandonment in the 1800s. The islands remained part of the Scandinavian kingdom, as we mentioned last week, until 1468, when they were pawned to the Scottish crown by Christian I of Denmark. Now, how do you pawn an island? Just like, right, I tell you what, I don't know how that happens anyway. Anyway, it remained in Scottish hands. So what I'll do is have a little look at these images again. And I'm hoping I will get through what I need to get through tonight. So one thing I wanted to do is, obviously that body was found near the building of the hall that we just mentioned. And you can again see that there, can't you, where there's these nice little circles I would say that a hand drill would have made that design a little iron hand drill would have made that wonderful intricate design, because there's a lots of them and they're quite regular. So yeah, they're quite symmetrical actually. I love the design that we've got there. So what and the other thing as well is that Bill and Pat had the opportunity to see was whalebone in a Neolithic context being used for lanterns. You touched one, didn't you, Bill?
I can't remember, Carl. Where was that?
That was in the laboratory with that weird girl in the university.
Oh, the college. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The weird girl. Yes, I remember the weird girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll just move on from that. And we're not talking about Michelle, because this was a few years before Michelle. Anyway.
He was bisexual, I think.
Yeah, she told us that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Bill, I don't know what to say now. Let's just move on. So what I want to do now is I want to go back at the other stuff that we've just seen, right? Those images, we'll go back at them in a minute to try and put a bit of context. Right, this is actually the burial chamber at Maes Howe. Oh, hang on. Have you still got the burial chamber there?
Yep.
Okay.
Right, just right, good. We got that at Maes Howe, right? And I've got the stuff I want to read out, right? And hopefully I can yeah. So basically within here, looking at this is a burial chamber from the Neolithic period. The great burial chamber at Maes Howe. It's a wonderful thing. And then it's likely in the Viking period, they gained access from the roof into here, right? And I think there were descriptions that they took some of the bones of the Neolithic bones out, and then they used it as well. And there's lots of little runic carvings in there. So we're getting that as a little bit of a backdrop. And there is a description of where these runic carvings are. And there's what they look like, sort of like tree-like little designs. So if we go back to there again, and we're looking at the entranceway. So in other words, you're looking at that bit there. Now you don't see it, and now you do. So on that stone there are these runic inscriptions. And then if we sort of go to some of these beams, so if we look at this now, it's sort of saying, he is a Viking, come here under the barrow. Thulfur Kolbien's son carved these runes high up. It's just like, yeah.
You didn't have to say that, did you?
No, he just no. And then it says, oh, hang on a minute. If I zoom in a bit more.
Where's the naughty bit?
Well, I gotta read through the others a minute. It is surely true what I say. The treasure was taken away. Treasure was carried off in 3 nights before those. So there's all these little weird sort of inscriptions. So again, then, Thorfinn Korben's son carved these runes high up. Now, the other carvings are actually hidden in different little bits of the chamber. It's a really interesting story. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the story now. This is I tell you, if we run over today, then we run over, right? So Maes Howe runes, Viking graffiti. When Maes Howe was first excavated in 1861, the chamber's original entrance passage was inaccessible, right? Nice. I mentioned that the Vikings probably got access from the roof. So to allow access the excavators drove a shaft down through the top of the mound. Once inside, however, they found proof that they were not the first to have broken into the tomb. Howard Carter all over again, 1922. The walls of the Stone Age chamber were covered in runic graffiti. 30 individual inscriptions found in Maes Howe. So I don't know how many inscriptions you got there. You've got about 10. So there's another 20 in there hidden. Make it one of the largest and most famous collections of runic graffiti in Europe. According to the Orkney Saga, over 800 years previous, in the darkness of an Orkney winter, a group of Viking warriors had sought shelter from a terrible snowstorm. Leading the men was Earl Harold, who at Christmas 1153 was making his way from Ness to the parish of Firth. The Earl's party took refuge in an already ancient structure. This structure, the mound they knew as Hagar. Inside, while waiting for the storm to abate. Stop. That day that we went to see Maes Howe, there was a vertical rain and snowstorm in our face. One of the people had trainers on and plastic bags on his hands. And we couldn't wait to get in there, could we, Pat? It was a very cold day. And on a very similar day, these men sheltered in the tomb because of the storm. What drew these Norsemen to the tomb? What of the legends? So here we go. This is from the Orkney Saga, chapter 93. It goes, on the 13th day of Christmas, they traveled on foot over to the Firth. During a snowstorm, they took shelter in Maes Howe, and two of them, his men, were insane. I think it means they were pissed, which slowed them down badly, so that by the time they reached Firth, it was nighttime. So basically, they're taking shelter. Hello, Michelle. They're taking shelter, and obviously, some of them were pissed. Another episode in the tomb is thought to have involved Earl Rogvald and his men, either heading to the Holy Land on a crusade or having just returned from one. The Crusaders also spent their time in Hagar, which is Maes Howe, the tomb itself. And they also left their marks on the walls. I think it was a Bill, right? Now, these weren't pagans, they were Christians. So they were doing these naughty runes, Bill. The Crusaders' graffiti, however, claims that they were the first to have broken into the chamber. With this in mind, it is likely that they must have entered the chamber prior to the crusade. So the translations to these are as follows, right? Igenbjork, the fair widow, many a woman has walked stooping in here, a very showy person, signed by Erklinger. And here we go, Bill. It's straight up, and this has been taken out of the official guidebooks. Thorny fucked Helgi. Thorny fucked Helgi. And that has been carved in there. Bill got very excited. Now, actually, the description is thorny fucked. And then it's got Helgi carved. So that was taken out of the guidebook, right? Because it was so explicit. And that, I'm not making this up. The word fucked is used. Now, the guide got very excited when he mentioned that. And Kathy did as well. The other one is Ingegirth is the most beautiful of all women, carved beside a rough drawing of a dog. Another carving. This mound was raised before Ragnar Lothbrok's. Her sons were brave, smooth-hide men, though they were. And then we've got another load of inscriptions. We're doing them all, folks. Ofram, the son of Sigurd, carved these runes. Harmerd, Hard Axe, carved these runes. Another one, these runes were carved by the man most skilled in runes in the Western Ocean. Bill, I remember him showing us that. Can you remember? He said, I can remember him saying that. These runes were carved by the man most skilled in runes in the Western Ocean. Thover Kobrenson carved these runes high up. We've already done that one. This how Vermundur carved. Otto Filler carved these runes. Benedict made this cross. And Vidar Matter carved these runes with his axe, owned by Gauk Trandelsson in the South Land. Trigger carved these runes. And Fyr, the son of Stein, carved these runes, and the name Thorir. Ork's son says in the runes he carves, and then there's a Forthurkinas Trimir carved these runes. And the final runes are as follows. I'm just going to try to. It is surely true that. Right. Here we go. These are the other runes. Here we go. Crusaders broke into Mice How. Lift the Earl's cook carved these runes. To the northwest is a great treasure hidden. It was long ago that a great treasure was hidden here. Happy is he that might find that great treasure. Hacken alone bore treasures from this mound. Signed, Simon Sirith. And two last ones. Here is a Viking come here under the barrow. And finally, this is one we've already done. It is surely true what I say, the treasure was taken away. Treasure was carved off in 3 nights before those. Is to me said that treasure is here hidden very well, say few as Odder. And those are the carvings from Mice How. I tell you what, Bill, I can remember the one specifically that he mentioned about. He mentioned about the one about that woman being deflowered, and the one about these runes were carved by the man most skilled in runes in the Western Ocean. I remember him showing us those two. And Kathy did get very excited with some of those carvings. And right. So what I'd like to do now, we're gonna see if we've got some other stuff I'd like to do. So I'm just gonna double check. I'm just gonna I'm okay at this minute, but I'm sort of flagging a minute. But what we've got that there, and we've got this sort of, and there's another 20 elsewhere. And these are what those rooms look like. Now I haven't found it because I didn't really want to make it as relevant. When you go to the stones at oh flipping heck, the Ring of Brodgar. When you go to the Ring of Brodgar, in one of the stones there's some runic inscriptions. Right now, they're not like this. They're very different. And actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to see if I can just see. I didn't want to do that, but I'm Ring of Brodgar. I know I got my own images, but runes, Viking. See if we can see it and just do a bit of a. If I can see it a minute, hang on. Oh yeah, I've got it, folks. Yes, I've got it. Let's just. I've actually got it now. On one of the stones at the Ring of Brodgar, there's a stone with some runes on it, right? So if we do this now, hang on, ups a daisy, there we go. Now I know Bill saw this, and I know I saw it. And I think Beaton, I think we all did. But whoever went there shone a torch on at night, and they've actually come up quite well. The problem is there's some debate whether these are authentic or not, because if you look at the other stones at the Ring of Brodgar, it's like it's sheets of stone have fallen off, and you start to think, well, if that's happening in the past 200 years, how have these survived over the past 1,000 years? Now, I'm going to do devil's advocate. I'm going to go in the middle and say maybe. But again, the runes at Maeshowe are quite impressive and quite spectacular. When you've got a little bit of a torch on there, you need a bit of a torch. And you probably need the lights off to actually shine the torch on them. I think that would have been better, wouldn't it, Bill, if they'd have turned the light off there and would have shined. Because when we were looking at the runes, we had all the light on them in the burial chamber and it just didn't shine up. So whoever did that went at night and sort of took these images. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to, you know what, right? I saw Pat then. She gave me a massive smile. It was great. Liked it. So again.
He's gone.
Who?
Pat, he's gone.
Pat's not gone.
No, he is gone, Pat. Today, he's gone.
Look, we don't want to do politics. Shut up.
I'm so happy, yeah.
I'm so happy. Yeah, no, right. Okay, you can be. Right, anyway, moving on. So what we're going to do now, there's some stuff that I missed out. I mentioned Lindisfarne, right? And we didn't even mention the guy. So well done, Bill. You're learning. So Lindisfarne, so we're thinking about the link with Orkney and the Northmen from Orkney. They weren't called the Norsemen, they were called the Northmen. So the Northmen north of Lindisfarne, Northumberland, is obviously Orkney, right? This is where we think they came from, where they sacked it in 793. Now, so what I'd like to do is I'd just like to go back a little bit and so it'd be the last. We've done Vikings over the past 2 weeks, really. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things, really. Now I wanted to do the hogbacks a little bit more from Cumbria, but we won't be doing them today. But you know, I might chuck them in the future sometime. We're going to be looking at a bit about South Cymru today, South Wales. We'll mention that for a little bit, and then we'll call it a day. And you can think of all this sort of influence with the Danish Vikings on the east coast, and the Danish Vikings do go all the way down to Cornwall, and then this is what we were talking about last week, and then you've got the Norwegian Vikings going into Ireland, but we've also got Danish Vikings going to Ireland as well. Now the Vikings going to South Wales, they're probably a mix of both Danish and Norwegian. And then you've obviously got the other Vikings, the Swedish and the Finnish Vikings. Well, that's another game altogether. But they're going to have links here, because when you think about Anglia on the map there, and you think about Sutton Hoo, and you think about Radwald associated with the burial, maybe it is him at Sutton Hoo around 640. He was Swedish. So we've got those, and the Isle of Man Vikings, they're Norwegian as well. So out of all the places in Britain, I think it's the Isle of Man is the island that's really kept hold of most of its Viking stuff. But Orkney is a close second. And if anyone's ever been to Shetland, which I've been to, Shetland is just a weird place altogether.
Carl?
Yeah, go for it.
There's still a connection between Norway and Orkney, because when I was there, the Crown Prince and Princess of Norway was visiting Kirkwall Cathedral.
Yes, you said, and you actually saw them wandering through the street, didn't you?
Well, I saw them go to the put up to the cathedral. That's right. Yeah.
And again, there's this Viking link that we don't. There's this Norwegian Danish link which in Britain we have a habit of forgetting about. It's we always talk about the link with America, or the link with France, and maybe the link with Germany and the royal family and all the rest of it. But it's almost as if we forget about, and Pete's very right. There's still that link. There's still that very powerful link with the Scandinavian landscape.
And with Maeshowe, we were at one of the rings of standing stones, and there were some standing stones which are actually aligned with the entrance to Maeshowe. and they would be aligned in such a way that the either the sunrise or the sunset would directly shine into the entrance to Maze How.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously that's obviously from a Neolithic context, but yes, there's all those earlier links. So what I wanted to do is just the next bit now is just very, very brief. There's a site I wanted to mention which I don't have any images for, but I'll just sort of mention it. The Vikings in Wales. We looked at the wonderful site in Anglesey last week with Mark Redknapp's excavations, and obviously this sort of little thing here. This sort of little bit of a trade route thingy between sort of Bristol, the South Wales coast, which just mentioned, and obviously last week we mentioned Llanbedrigog. Last week Anglesey, there it is, we mentioned that. So that's the sort of Chester Dublin link. So we put those two in there, Bristol, Wexford,
and Milford
Dublin link, and Milford, yes, which we can clearly see that happening. And this is something that Pete was on about last week, this sense of the way stations associated with the Vikings. This is sort of postulated and put in there, but obviously these sort of tidal way stations, which will be numerous along the coast. And if I just move back a little bit, we don't see any burials like this along the coast. And one thing I'd like to say is, I'd just like to quickly go to here. And it's mentioned single coin find. Well, underneath that is a settlement. Now, I'm proud to say that I was involved with the excavations at Sully. But unfortunately, because the archaeologist excavating there, a wonderful chap by the name of Dr. Peter Wardle, his contract ended with the Glamorgan Gwent Archaeological Trust. They didn't actually backfill the archaeological excavations there, so they left them open. And now the archaeology has been completely destroyed. The Viking archaeology has been completely destroyed there. And there's the remains of a Bronze Age village. And what they did find when they excavated at this site known as Atlantic Trading Estate, they excavated the remains of lots of storage pits and pits that would have been used as post holes. And I can remember being on site. It was, I think, it must have been about 1989 when the excavations were finishing there. Now I can remember somebody saying, we found they said it in an accent, we found a root stone. And I thought for years, what is a root stone? R-U-D-E. And he actually meant a rune stone. He actually found a stone with runes on it. And that was actually found at this site in Sully Atlantic Trade Estate. And we mentioned last week, just a couple of things about place names, the home island, steep home, flat home, grass home, and so on. Skokholm Island as well. And Swansea, and there was talk at one time about the name of Cog, for example, being linked with the Vikings, and there's lots of other little intriguing names up and down the coastline that are associated with the Vikings. On that moment, I'm actually starting to feel it now, so I'm gonna call it a night. As I say, we've
don't forget Hubbardston.
Hubbardston you mentioned that in again
In
where
Milford.
that purple little thing is down there up in West Wales.
It's on the map, and it's there as Hubbardston, and it was named after the leader of the Vikings who overwintered there, Hubbard.
So, and again, lots of things to do with place names. Just mentioned this as well. The Reading, for example, is named after the place of Reading, place of Reading. So there's lots of place names. When you get place names with an ing on the end or ham, there's usually a Viking link. So ham or ing, Viking link. first wave of settlers, second wave of settlers, Ing and Ham. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get off that now, and I just wanted to. Next week we're going to do something that we were meant to be doing a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to look at I wanted to look at a recent archaeological excavation anywhere in Wales, a recent archaeological excavation anywhere in Cumbria, Orkney and Cornwall. That's what we're going to do next week. It's just going to be ad hoc next week, 4 sites in those areas. And that'll be a nice little thing. And then I do believe then we've got one more of these. And then we will be discussing what we will do with the future of the Wednesday evenings. I'd just probably like to mention that that this thing with my lungs is probably a little bit more long term than I think, but we'll see what the doctor says in the next few days. But anyway, so we'll carry on with the Wednesdays for a couple of weeks anyway. I didn't ask if anyone had any news at the beginning, but anyone got one? I'm okay at this minute. Anyone got anything they'd like to mention now? Pam.
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Oh God, you've been keeping your mouth shut the past few weeks. What's wrong with you, woman? Right, Pete.
Storm, Christoph has just passed. It was
Christos.
absolutely hammering down a few minutes ago.
Oh well, we've had it all day but we're in the valleys. We haven't noticed any difference.
Well, there you are.
Bill's valleys as well. They just have it all the time.
Well, you're okay. You're up on hill.
Yeah, your Colbrook Road. Is there any sandbags out, Pete?
No.
No. But Pete, can you do me a quick favour? There's nothing to do with this. You know the house with the shrapnel damage down in Colbrook Road.
Yes.
Can you find out what number is that house? And secondly, can you take a photograph of it for me and for Richard actually?
Yeah, we'll do.
Because he needs an image of shrapnel because he thinks he's found another site down Cold Nap. And I said, if you've got an image of shrapnel damage down in Colbrook Road, you can match it with the stuff in Cold Nap. So if you could do that for me, Pete, yeah. I'd really appreciate that. And I need the number and that for the book. Thank you, Pete.
Okay.
And Bill.
Yeah, one question on the, do we know where the orientation of the boat burials were on any particular heading, north, south, east, west, or was it a random thing?
I think that's really random. That's one thing. My answer is a bit of a cop-out answer. I used to listen to archaeologists when they used to say, if it's a west-east alignment, head to the east, that it's obviously Christian, and when it's south-north alignment or any other alignment is pagan, right? But what we have been finding in more recent years is that you get north-south burials in church graveyards, so they're Christian. So the alignment doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Yeah, okay.
And the other thing as well is, Bill, really fitting. I was having a bad night on a Cowbridge walk once, and I just basically said, I said something like, you know, the church at Cowbridge is a typical west-east alignment. And I just thought, oh, Christ, that's wrong, isn't it? And then somebody said, no, it's a south-north alignment, right? So the church at Cowbridge is aligned north, not east.
Yeah.
So Bill, the answer is that doesn't mean anything anymore. It doesn't.
The pagans would be east and west with the rising and setting of the sun.
But that would be facing west for the church as well.
Well, possibly, yes.
So in other words, everybody's right. So yeah. So Pat.
I just wonder, is it 48 due for this class and also 48 for tomorrow afternoon?
Right. I'm just going to look at the book a minute. So everyone is straight, right? Everyone is straight, right? And actually, I just wanted to.
Well, 30 quid for this one.
Everyone stay on a minute. Yeah, that is right. It is 30 quid for this one. But what I want to do is check. Is I want to check what is due because I've got Ellen paid for the next one, actually. Bill is paid. So when this is due at the end of the month, this will be £30.
Right, okay.
Right, this will be £30. And what I might do is, you know, the past few months I've been looking at sites and I've been more or less completely ignoring artifacts. Right, I think I might do something about artifacts, i.e., you know, it'll be nice images of, you know, artifacts being found in different areas as a comparison, and that's what I would probably like to do, that because I've always missed out artifacts. So it's £30 for these Wednesdays. It's £48 for the standard classes, you know, for the the 2 months. So these are on a 8-week cycle, and the classes are on a 2-month cycle.
Okay.
So with the classes, you can get 9 weeks. With these, you only get 8.
Yeah. So our Thursday one is due, is it? I think
Thursday class in the day is due, right?
right. I sent it in just now. So
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll look out for that now. And the only other thing I'd like to mention, right, is that this is actually come from somebody else. They said, oh, they were surprised that Pat hasn't joined the Thursday evening one. And my answer was basically, well, Pat would have joined the Thursday evening one if she wasn't doing her other 59 classes a week.
yeah, I got 3 other classes.
Yeah, exactly. And Bill, the question was asked last week if you were going to do Thursday evening, but obviously let me know tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't. You know, I'm too weary this time of night, Carl, to be honest with you.
And you're not well either.
No, I'm not. There we are then. We'll get over it. Good times are coming at some point.
So good. Well, actually, Bill, the answer is the summer's coming. End of. Shut up.
We get the vaccination soon, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, they started up here. They
You won't
started
get
up
it
here.
because you're not old enough. You're not 80 yet.
It's coming. It's coming.
So actually, Pete, I can give you some news, Pete. In the next couple of weeks, the Barry practices will have enough inoculations to do everyone over 80, so that's fine.
When I rang them on Monday, they only had they were only allowed 50 a week.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
For now. You're with West Key, are you as well?
But with the Vale group.
Oh, you're not with mine, aren't you? Right. On that note, if there's no other questions, right, okay. I will see. Actually, I'll see all of you tomorrow, will I? Or I won't see Pete.
No.
Right.
You'll see me next Tuesday now.
All right, then. That's fine. That's okay. Okay then. Okay then.
Okay.
Take care. Stay healthy, everybody.
Okay, yeah, bye,
Stay
bye
healthy.
everybody.
Thanks for joining me tonight. Appreciated. Bill, Pat, Peter, and Pam. I will see you all tomorrow or next week. Thank you very much, and thanks for your support. Love you lots. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Good night, everyone. Night.
Night, Pam. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pam, keep posting that stuff on Facebook. You're like a Trojan.
Oh, sometimes it works. I wish other people could see it, you know, on the groups, but doesn't always work.
How are you? Quickly, how are you with Monica?
Pardon?
Monica, you know Monica, the one that does the Arthurian group?
No, I don't know anything about that one.
All right, then don't worry about it. We won't go there.
I've come across that name before, so I won't get involved. No.
Oh, all right then. We'll leave that. Pam, yeah. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye then.
Bye-bye. 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 Thanks for watching. Thank you.